Welcome, everyone, to Four Authors Celebrate Transgender and Gender Nonconforming, or I guess we said gender non-binary kids. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division with my partner, Donnie Jokum. And we are a queer bookstore event space in New York City. We opened in 2012, and we've been hosted by the LGBT Center on 13th Street since 2014. We remain closed due to the pandemic, but we've been doing virtual events like this. And we also launched an online store. So I'm going to briefly show you that on the share screen. If I can move the things out of the way. Here we go. There we go.
Bingo.
So bgsqd.com/store. And if you scroll down, you'll see you can click on books by category, books recommended by Reclaim Pride Coalition, a local activist organization we're working with. They're the ones who produced the Queer Liberation March in June. This will be the third year of that. So check those out. And we've also been doing events with them. And then if you scroll down our featured products, you will see the books by the authors joining us today. And all of them, we've made 25% off till the end of today. So if you want to get any of these books from us, we would really appreciate it. They're all there. And yeah, that's that. So check out the store, please. And now I am going to stop sharing. Okay. So what else did I want to say? I want to say that if you have any questions for the authors or for me, please, you can put them in the chat function, or you can just wait and ask them yourself. Just, raise your hand, your virtual hand or your physical hand, and we'll call on you and you can ask a question. So let's get started. I wanted to start with the mothers on our panel, Camilla and Jody. Could each of you just introduce yourselves briefly? And since you're parents of trans kids, if you could talk about what that journey has been like for a couple of minutes, when your kids came out to you or started talking to you, and what that's been like and how that led to the books.
We should start.
Yeah.
Take the floor first.
All right, I'll grab the floor. My name is Camila Gisslow. I'm a mother of 3 children. My son came out when he was about 4.5 years old, almost 5. It was one night I read a bedtime story and I said what I said every night. Good night, my beautiful girls. I'll see you tomorrow. And then he sat up in the bunk bed and said, Mom, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. And that's where our journey started. And this was in 1997. So back then there were no information. I've never heard about kids feeling that they belong to another gender than the one that was given to them at birth. So I thought that he was just a tomboy. And I tried to explain that to him. We speak English at home. So I used the word tomboy and I explained what that was. And he got really upset with me. He's like, I'm not a stupid tomboy. I'm a real boy. And the way he said it, it just struck something really deep into my heart. And I just knew that what he said was true. I couldn't understand it, but I knew it was true. So I decided I had to try to find some information and see if there were other kids that was feeling the same way. And I started searching and there was nothing out there. And so I decided to just let him show the way. And that's what he's been doing. And since then, I found information and I started to create awareness about being transgender for 15 years now here in Sweden. And it's also turned into my own business. So I hold lectures and seminars and I teach from preschools to the military service here in Sweden.
Wow.
And so that was just a little bit shortly. I don't know if you want to know more, but it's
Yeah,
been a
well,
long journey. It's been really, really tough for him. But us, me and his sisters, we've loved him and we've loved him and we've been there by his side through his whole journey. And today he's 27 years old, happy young man, gorgeous, and both on the inside as well as the outside.
beautiful. And when did you write the 3 books? The Perfectly Charlie, Perfectly Bella, and Perfectly, is it Luke? Yes.
It's Linus, yeah, Linus.
Linus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It all started, I wrote another book first, which is not translated. It was his journey, but I really felt that there needed to be a book for children because, you know, I wanted to write the books that I wish I would have found when I tried to search for literature where he could identify himself, you know?
Yeah.
So I wrote them, Marcus, I don't remember now how many years it is. It's about 5 years, right? 5 or 4 years.
We published them in the Swedish books. We published 2018.
Yeah, so the year before I wrote them.
Okay, and just to clarify for everyone, so Marcus Tallberg, with whom we'll speak in a minute, founded a publishing house that published Camilla's books. So we'll say more about that in a bit. So I'm sorry, so that was
2017 then. Yeah.
Okay, so recent, very recent.
It's very recent.
Yeah.
There weren't any books, not Swedish authors anyway, here in Sweden, books with the theme of being transgender and for kids, you know. And I felt that it was really, we needed that. And we need more books, not just my books, but we need so many more authors writing their own journeys or different stories, because what's happened since I wrote these books is that I've received emails almost every week from preschool teachers, from parents, and especially from preschool teachers that write and tell me that it's helped some children at their school coming out, explaining that this is me. For the first time, they've got words to, you know, explain how they feel, or so they can explore their identity. And it's also helping teachers and parents in how to behave, you know, not be scared, listen, let them find their way. And I think, you know, the good thing with these 3 books is it's 3 different children with different identities. I mean, you know, we have 2 binary, but we have also 1 non-binary. And I think that's important as well. We need more non-binary books about non-binary people, because I think this is just what I think myself. In the future, for, you know, I think most of us there's going to be a huge amount of people that are non-binary that doesn't exist. I can tell you this, my son used to say when he was a kid, Mom, I think you need to write a book about me so others know that they exist. And I think that's what we are doing, all us authors here.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to Jodie Patterson. Do you want to tell us a bit about your child and your journey?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I just can't wait to hear everyone's story and everyone's thoughts. I come from, I'm a New Yorker, native New Yorker. I'm a mother of 5 children who are now not so small, ages 11, 13, 20, 15, 22, and 28. And I raised my children in New York City. I was raised in New York City as well, but I come from a Southern line of activists that have done, you know, so political activism and economic activism. My grandmother was dubbed Ms. Revolution in the South by Martin Luther King Jr. So, my uncle is Gil Scott Heron, who wrote "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." So,
no way.
Yeah.
Sorry, starstruck.
But I was, you know, raised as a revolutionary in a sense, and really understood economic divide and racial disparity, and And when I had my third child, I was raising Penelope as a feminist. By age 3, I thought for sure this one and my Georgia, they're going to be feminists. And Penelope, more so than anything else, was angry by age 3. Penelope was biting the nails until bloody, reoccurring nightmares, protest for anything, getting dressed, brushing teeth, brushing hair, getting out the house, protest to touch. If I tried to touch or cuddle Penelope, Penelope would resist and reject. And so I thought, as a mom, this is something I can fix. Maybe it's lack of time. Maybe I need to give more time to Penelope. I have 5 children. Maybe I need to read more storybooks. Maybe I forgot to spend that, that up close and personal mama time. I even thought maybe it was a dairy allergy. I thought maybe Penelope was reacting to dairy. And so I cleaned up Penelope's diet. And so I spent a good year trying to fix the problem, this problem I thought I couldn't quite name. And finally, at one day we just sat on the floor. It wasn't bedtime, but it was that moment when I just quieted everything. We went into the room, we closed the doors, we sat on the floor, and I looked at Penelope, and I was so frustrated that day. And I just asked, what's wrong? Like, why are you so angry, Penelope? And Penelope said, because everyone thinks I'm a girl, and I'm not. I am a boy. And so I thought, oh, we have a feminist. I said, we have a feminist who recognizes the way the world leans in the favor of boys and leans in the favor of men and wants to be seen as tough as opposed to weak. And here's a feminist who, perhaps a gay woman, perhaps, I didn't use the word tomboy, but I was assuming the filters that were in my mind: gay, tough, feminist. And so I said, excellent. If you feel like your brothers, act like your brothers. And then Penelope corrected me and said, I don't feel like a boy, I am a boy. And so that was my first class in like being versus feeling. I didn't understand exactly what we were talking about. I had it was the conviction that in the delivery of a 3-year-old who said, I don't feel, I am. I thought we were initially, that in that moment, I thought we were going to die. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean, the images that came through my mind were Silence of the Lamb, when the psychopath is wiggling in front of the camera naked. I thought that's maybe what we're talking about. I also remembered in that split second, the documentary Paris is Burning, where the kids, many of them didn't make it, many of them died or were killed.
Yeah.
I didn't have an understanding of what gender nonconformity or transgender was. And all I knew was what the media had told me, which is dangerous, psychotic, scary, death. So I was unclear if Penelope was going to survive, but I was also unclear if the whole entire lineage. This is the fear that's put on us. I thought the entire lineage of the Pattersons was not going to make it because of this one child saying who he was. I took that information. I committed myself to not allowing death to happen. And I researched and read and joined communities and made new friends and traveled and understood. I understand now, 10 years later, Penel to be transgender, there is no problem. My bias, my ignorance was the issue. I have become the chair of the board of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, which is our largest LGBT organization. I just really changed. I mean, I think Penelope has, and he actually asked to change his name last month to Penel at 13. He's 13, he was valedictorian, he's a great athlete, he's a great brother. I've carved out space for him. I've moved the world back, so he's just who he is. And I have done the work on myself and on my adult community to not be transphobic, to not be scared, to be supportive, to not take up too much space. So my story is, although I've written a book about Penel through his perspective, it's really it is also my story about how I have corrected my myself, my bias, my footprint. And
beautiful.
The book is really, I tried to take away all the heaviness because when adults talk about gender, we always add this scary, sad, you know, tone. And when my son talks about it, he talks about it like triumphant, joyful,
Yeah.
gold medal. And that's the story that I'm telling. This is he's a Black queer kid, and we're a Black queer family. And that is one of our gems, one of our best things ever.
That is beautiful. Thank you both. We're going to come back to you in a minute, but I want to move on to Ra Anderson. And Ra, if you could just introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about your journey and how that led to Charlie's Best Work Yet.
Thanks, Greg. And Jody, I love the book. I bought it. I loved it. And when I felt like Penelope, like I felt that power. I'm like, oh my goodness, to hear you say that, you know, he's that strong with that identity, you know, that young, and it's just beautiful. That it really resonated with me. So like, kudos. My name's Ra. Thanks for having me. I am a creative. I'm a mother, actually, as well. I have a 12-year-old, brilliant, super shy boy. I'm assuming that he's cisgendered. He hasn't came out with anything else yet, so we're just rocking with it. Otherwise, and yeah, I'm a creative voiceover artist and a newfound author. I suppose I can coin myself with that now.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm non-binary, gender fluid, and I've always known that I was non-binary and gender fluid. I just didn't know the name of it. I just also considered myself a tomboy, and my mom considered myself a tomboy, and it was cool. The tomboy stuff was cool until I came out like I was gay, and then it was like, oh, this isn't a phase. I also come from a Southern type of family. My parents come from a Kojic Baptist background. Both my parents are pastors. So they weren't the most accepting of my lifestyle growing up. We're actually pretty great right now. But as a kid, I didn't have the narrative, the support, the understanding of what gender was, the spectrum, or any of it. So I wanted to write a book for myself as a kid. And that was pretty much the basis of Charlie's Best Work Yet. It follows Charlie, and she is androgynous. It leaves it at there. She's androgynous. And I wanted to create this conversation without coining labels on it, because we're always learning and we're always changing. So I wanted to introduce words that I wasn't introduced to as a kid. And I think the really cool part is there's like a Grace Jones insert inside the book. And so I don't want to tell you too much, because it's real fun, and it's just something different. Very colorful, very big. And this is like my baby right now. I have an amazing illustrator that I met through the internet. So shout out to I don't know if Liza is in here. It says Lisa, but I don't know if that's my illustrator, but her name's Liza, and she's from Austria. We've actually never met in person. And when I say this, she was so eager to illustrate my book, it's really our book, you know, and she's such an ally. And yeah, I'm just really humbled and grateful to be here, guys.
That's beautiful. I think that's so lovely to give kids the space, you know, like you said, not to, this is what it is. Like, kids are figuring themselves out, and we need to support them and let them do that. And there's, I mean, policing, you know, we're having a lot of discussions about policing in this country right now, long overdue. But the policing begins so early in our families, you know, the policing of what's acceptable behavior, and that's something, I mean, obviously your kids reacted very young. They knew that this was not working for them. And I'm so glad that they were able to let you know and not keep it hidden inside. But yes, Ra, I think that's one of the most beautiful aspects of the book, is that kind of, you know, I feel like a few years ago, it was so different. Like, anyone who showed any kind of gender nonconformity was, oh, the kid's gay. And it's like, maybe, Give the kids some space. Give the kids some space to grow and discover themselves. So I want to bring Marcus in here, and then we'll all have a big open discussion. But Marcus, if you could tell us about, you founded a press which published Camilla's books in addition to some of your own books. One of which is My Queer Teen Life, which you co-wrote, and is kind of, well, they're both coming of age novels, right? The Being Alice as well, and Being Alice is a trans protagonist. So could you tell us a little bit about the books you wrote, but also about Tallberg Forlag?
Absolutely. So my name is Marcus, and my first book came out 2008 when I was 19 years old, and I wrote it with Emma, who I actually think is with us today. And
Hi, Emma.
and she is my best friend since kindergarten, and she still is my sister. And we both have been writing a lot growing up. And then we found this competition, a writing competition, and that's how we started with this book. And we had a pressured amount of time. And so we were like, what are we going to write about? Because we had 3 months, and you don't write a book in 3 months, especially when you have to do like 300 A4 pages. So we decided to write about us. Because we already have the characters and the subject and whatever. So the characters are based on my coming out story, and then like our friendship basically. And that's how my journey started with the writing. And then my ex is gender fluid, and then 3 of my closest friends are 2 trans binary, and then 1 is gender fluid. And they wanted me to write my 3rd book about trans, and because they wanted a book that was about them. And I didn't feel like I could do it because I didn't see myself as trans, even though these thoughts has gone through my head as well, like what am I, because I don't like being this typical macho masculine man. I'm wearing makeup right now, and I do love to wear high heels and stuff like that, but I don't feel that's my identity, and I don't feel, it's just that I like to do that kind of stuff. But they convinced me to write this book, and so I thought that I should, how should I start? So I did ask people online to interview them about their journey. So I found a dozen trans people around Sweden, and they were so open and so honest to share their journeys and their life struggles and everything with me. And I got so much material, and I didn't know how to put it into one book. So I remember that I invited my gender fluid friend, and they don't want to be named because they want to stay in the shadows. I don't blame they, but they is amazing. And I was like, okay, so I found out this and this and this. What do you think I should do with it? And they like, okay, you need to talk about this, you need to talk about that, and you have to talk about this. And I was like, whoa, wait. So I was like, I gave they a glass of wine, I took my computer, and I was like, okay, now you can continue. So I wrote down everything what they said, and basically that became Vincent in Being Alice. So everything Vincent says, all of Vincent's monologues are basically what they told me during our wine evenings. And so that's how Being Alice came to be. And then when I wanted to publish that book, when it was done, the publishing houses that published my 2 other books, they didn't want to publish it because they thought it was too small of a niche. They didn't think the market was strong enough. Sweden doesn't have that kind of market for LGBTQ books, and they were scared. And I was like, but I can't let this go. I have to do something about it, because my friends, they have been screaming for this book, and like listening to these stories that I have, not witnessed, but talked with, I understand that there is a need for this book. So I started my company, and I knew that self-publishers, they are not being taken seriously, because honestly, everyone can publish a book. You just go to a printer and then that's that. So I knew that I needed to have authors in my stable. You don't say that in English, do you? But you know what I mean.
In your corner.
Yeah, in my corner. So I, yeah. So thank you. And so I searched for authors, and Camilla is one of them. And then I found 3 others, and I took all of my savings to print these books. And the first spring we printed 8 books, and now 3 years later we have over 40 books, and then a lot of books in English, 1 in German, 1 in Spanish. And we did a documentary, me and Camilla, and we had a music, because I feel like, you know, we need representation everywhere, not just in music. A cisgendered white heterosexual man, he knows his identity like that because he is represented everywhere, you know, in medias, in books, in musics, in television shows. You know, it's no issue to find yourself, but if you're not represented, it's much harder to find an identity or a community, you know, where you feel like, ah, that's me, or that's where I belong, or I, you know, that makes sense, right? And so that's basically the goal with my company. And we just started in the US, globally, so hopefully that will be something inspiring for others. And I'm so happy to be part of this journey. I'm so thankful for Camilla, because I have learned so much about trans and other ethnicities or minority groups these past years. And also, all right, I forgot. I don't know the English word, but I'm also an adult contact person, basically for kids in the autism spectrum. And one of them is actually trans. We knew it when they were very young, but we waited for they to come out of their shell, basically. And she is 16 today, and I've been with her since 2013, 8 years. And that has also been very, very inspiring. And she is the most strong, brave person that I know, and I love her because she has taught me so much. And actually, it was because of the documentary that me and Camilla did that she was brave enough to say it out loud that, Mom, I am trans. So that's very cool.
That's beautiful. I mean, really what's striking me now listening to all of you is you're activists, which I'm guessing you know, and the work you're doing is so important. You brought up that film about Camilla, and that's something you have a link that you're going to share, is that right?
Yes, yeah, I thought you were going to share it, but absolutely, I will share it. I will just find it, but yeah, it's
beautiful.
Free. It's going to be free. Usually it's $7, I think, but from today till Monday, it's going to be free for everyone that's using this link.
Sweet. Yeah, if you could put that in the chat function before we end, that would be lovely.
I will.
Camilla, do you want to talk a little bit about that film?
Yes, I would love to. It all started, we were just going to make a short commercial about the Perfectly Me series books in Swedish. And I found 3 families that we wanted to work with. But after just the first family and we were filming, we just realized, me and Marcus, that no, this is not just a little commercial film. We need to make a full film. So I'm extremely proud of this movie because we filmed it in 3 months. It altogether took only 7 months to have it completely done and had our premiere, the opening. So, I mean, I went to film school and I know it's almost impossible. We had a budget on, was it $1,200 or something like that? Like that's 12,000 crowns in Swedish. We made magic, and we made everything happen that needed to be happening. And these mothers, it's about 3 mothers and their journey with their children. And they were so brave. They just opened up to us. And they're 3 different stories, really 3 different stories. But what's sort of the red line through it all is that if you're not accepting people for who they are, and especially children, you know, we all born who we are. We don't become transgender. We don't become gay. We're born who we are. So that means that we need to be able to live as who we are from the beginning. And when we do, we create children growing up with self-esteem and integrity. But if you don't, if you try to push someone down, you create an unhealthy way of looking at yourself, sadness, anger. I'm trying to find the word in English. It's not mental unhealthy, but you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that is something we see. What happens when we love our children and let them be who they are, and what happens when the society doesn't, you know? So I feel that this movie shows how to love, what we need to do to let our children to just be themselves. I'm extremely proud of this documentary, I have to say. I know maybe you
Lovely.
shouldn't, but that's
No,
how
please, you should be
the American
proud of
way.
your work.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm proud of Marcus.
Especially,
I just want to say one thing that I love about Marcus is that he is like me, because when I get an idea, I just jump. And so does he. And we've held our hands. We've been screaming at the same time, maybe, but we just do. And I love that. I love that he's brave and just go, you know? So, yeah.
As they say, courage is contagious. So
Yeah.
more, more courage.
Yes.
I'm wondering if any of you would like to comment on what kind of responses you've gotten from readers. Jody and Camilla, maybe other parents, Raw, maybe other kids. Let me know what kind of responses you've gotten.
Sure.
Yeah, like I said before, I mean, I get comments from both parents, preschools, and children.
Right.
Some children have used my books to show the parents who they are. Maybe they've been scared of saying I'm trans. They give the book and say, read this. This is me, you know? And I get the emails from the parents saying that it was helpful in looking, I mean, with the Perfectly Me series, it's very easy. It says, this is me. This is how I wish you would treat me. So it's sort of a little guidance to how to, you know, just accept and go with the flow, not be scared. I think, Jody, you said it before, you know, when you stand there as a parent and it's like, I remember how I felt after Sam told me. I felt like I was just thrown out in the universe, and I felt like completely weightless floating around. And at the same time, it felt like I was falling down in the deep hole, and just knowing like, what are we going to do now? Because I knew everything had changed, everything. So it's nice to sometimes have something that can guide you and like, all right, I'm going to try this. And it's not the end of the world. I saw when you, Jody, were talking about how you felt. I recognized everything you said. And I also come from an activist family, so a political active family. And so for me, I've always had an open mind, but here it was like, oh my God. Yeah, you know, I feel this is true, but how do we go from here? You know, it was scary. I didn't have the tools. And I think that's what I love about when I get some reactions from parents and teachers and children, that it's tools. They're tools.
Absolutely.
I responded, I related to what you said about, you know, if we don't support our children, what does it do to them? And that's it. It's clear. I mean, when you, just by supporting and saying, yes, I believe you, you know, the desire to attempt suicide goes down. The desire to self-harm goes down. The desire to participate in life goes up. And so that's very clear to me. When we support our children, we are actually supporting life. It's life affirming. And what we don't talk about as much is what it does, what it says about us when we are squashing and insisting and demanding our children be something that they're not. I think that it puts blood on our hands. And I think as people, when we insist on the dominant culture being the only culture, it is like white supremacy. It is like insisting that there is only one dominant culture. And so I've tried to focus, although my book is really from the perspective of my kid and my children, I've also tried to talk to the parents about what does it say about you when you need your child to be in your image? What does it say about you when you can't, when you're blind to your own child? And if you don't see your own child who lives in your house, whom you love, what else in this world don't you see?
Right?
Yeah.
My daughter's
Yeah.
house, what else don't I know? This is really about figuring out what in the hell am I blind to? And that's, to me, I talk a lot about, so the parents have been calling me and reaching out to me, parents of trans kids, but mostly just parents who want to be better. And I try to remind them that there's so much we don't know.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way, that especially with kids. I mean, something we haven't talked about yet is just anything to do with sex and children is, you know, people freak out and they want to see children as, you become a sexual being at age 18. And before that, you are not sexual, which is of course insane. We're sexual beings from when we're born.
I just wish that would stop, because it would,
Yeah.
you know, help so much to just focus on an individual person and let them be who they are, and not build up all this fear about the body and fear about you as a person. I mean, that's just who we are, you know. And
Yeah.
and also I think with gender and your identity, you know, gender identity and sexual identity, if we would talk to our kids more about it, and on a level that they can handle, of course, I think this whole body fearness, or when you dislike your body, you're so scared of you, I think that would grow away, you know, if we just, you know, could see ourselves fully and whole as we are, and then love ourselves, you know.
Raw, do you want to jump in here and talk about any responses you've gotten from readers?
Sure. So the first thing that people usually say is the artwork. And that's a very inviting conversation to have, because obviously you want to have a product that people are drawn to. And so I'm really, really thankful for that. But also a different narrative that I've been coming across is I've had quite a few heterosexual cisgendered people buy the book, and they particularly women with the Latinx you know, community, and they feel really drawn to the storyline, because my storyline is not a nuclear family. It's Charlie and their grandma, and I had maybe like 5 or 6 women come to me and say, you know, like, that's my grandma, and this book is just like about love. And, you know, my grandma was the one that, you know, was the one that loved me more than my mom, or like, you know, had that type of experience, that comfort. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't know, older Black women, that's just love right there. Like, there's something about an older person of color Black woman's love that just is very, very comforting. And that's where what I wanted to put into the grandma in my book, because it kind of reminds me of my mom, and that she's rearing my nephew. And so I see firsthand the experience of a 72-year-old Black woman that comes from a Baptist background, loving on this 13-year-old on the spectrum of autism child, and the patience and the strength and the power in them. I'm like, oh, that's powerful. Let's move that over here, you know. And then I don't think I really recognized that until people not of my community necessarily were commenting on it. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool that you're taking from that, and that there's just so many different levels and layers that people are taking from. So I'm truly appreciative. I haven't had the book out too long. It's been about a month now. So I'm looking forward to avenues of getting it in front of children, because my son is a reader, but he might be a little biased. He thinks everything mom does is kind of cool. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have it exposed to other children, see what they say.
And I think that's such an interesting thing that you brought up, that even parents of, you know, cisgender kids appreciate it, because this makes space for everyone. All these books make space for everyone. They make a more open world. And how do I want to say this? The gender binary harms, I think, everyone. Having this rigid binary harms everyone, because even those who might be cisgender, heterosexual, they're given a very tight role to play, and they are going to internalize that self-hatred, that policing of the self as well. So it's opening up for them a world of more possibilities of what being a man can look like or being a woman can look like, as well as being beyond either of those. Marcus, you haven't had a chance to respond to what you've heard from readers, and you're speaking as a publisher and an author.
Yeah, and like Camilla says about her books, there's a lot of, especially when we're doing book fairs, that there are teachers and preschool teachers that come up to me and tell me how important the books are, and there's almost only love and support, and there's not much negative that we have heard. And the only thing, like, is that me and Camilla are not trans ourselves, so it's like, why are you writing a trans book, you know? And I totally get that point of view as well, but it's also important, like, where we come in with the story. She as a mother of a trans child, and me with my experiences, and for my queer teen life, mostly it's young gay boys that email me and tell me that this is the best book they've ever read because they've recognized themselves in. But then it's also mothers. There's a lot of mothers that contact me and thank me for this book, which is a marketing group that I didn't think that, you know, was supposed to buy this book, because I didn't write it for anybody. We wrote it for ourselves. And then for being Alice, it's been wonderful to hear the responses that we get. And I don't really read reviews and stuff like that because I don't want to be sad, but I got or like disappointed, but I got a really nice email from one of the people that I interviewed for the book, and he told me that he had decided to stop living. And but before he did, he said he thought to himself that I'm gonna read this book because, you know, I was part of it. I'm curious to see what he did with the material that I gave him. And he had a really bad time with his girlfriend that didn't really accept him, etc., etc. It was difficult in school. And then he read the book and he wrote to me and he said that before I felt that my fire was out, but now I feel a spark and I want to do everything I can to keep it light. And I feel like that's the best review I can ever get. Because it feels, I mean, it sounds very stupid maybe or arrogant, but it feels like that the book saved his life. And that makes me proud. And that is also the fume for me to keep doing what I'm doing, you know, to the people that need the books. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
No, this is emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I feel it too. I mean, I will be, I'll come out a little bit. I mean, I tried to take my life at one point. My parents come from a Southern Baptist background. My grandfather was a Southern Baptist minister. And, you know, of course, if you teach children that they're an abomination, that they shouldn't exist, what do you think's going to happen? You know, and it's so lovely to see you, Jody and Camilla. My own parents are something of a disappointment, to put it mildly. And I kind of feel like I founded a queer church with the Bureau. It's like I'm a little a minister to my queer family, and it is a ministry. And I think it's totally emotional to talk about these things. And it's also so lovely to realize that we have a larger family in each other. On that note, I think we're down to our last 10 minutes. We can go a little over, that's fine. But I wanted to open this up to questions. If anyone in the audience wants to ask a question, you can either type it in the chat or just raise your hand. I also want to say, while you're maybe thinking of this, a big thank you to Andy Reynolds from Popular Publicity, who did really all the legwork to pull this event together. So thank you so much, Andy, for all the work you did to make this happen. I really appreciate that.
I think that Camilla raised her hand. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say to you, Greg, like, you know, I didn't come out until like 11 years ago that I'm bisexual, because I was too scared, even though my son went through this whole journey. But I didn't dare, because I thought that that would make things worse for him, that they would think that I was projecting my own identity, you know. And it's so weird how I myself lived in the sort of my closet and never dared coming out. And now I have, but I feel like I'm 8 years old. I mean, when I knew, and it's such an interesting feeling. And so yeah, this whole thing of not daring, but at the same time, I was pushing my son to be able to be himself, but I couldn't do it for myself. I mean,
it's a journey.
Yeah,
From
indeed.
beginning to end, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think is I find interesting. So I wrote a children's book, but I also wrote a memoir of my life for adults. And I find that it's easier to get people to want their children to be better. They want to share a child's story of self-determination. They want to help their children become more caring and loving and accepting. But as an adult, we don't necessarily pick up the book about our transition. We don't pick up the book about our journey. We don't pick up the book about how we can be better as quickly as we do a nice, cute book about a kid. And I'm very happy that we want our children to express themselves. And I'm really proud that we're pushing our children to be who they are from the inside. I just wanted to note that I find that when you were saying, you know, we're asking our children to be who they are, yet we are not doing the same bold work. I found that I was doing that too. I was saying, be who you are, tell the world who you are. Meanwhile, I wasn't able to do that for years. And that's something I notice now with children's book and adult book. It's the passing on of the children's book seems to be much faster, much swifter. The child message, and I'm grateful for that, but there's a lag in the adults understanding that this is work we have to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've probably said this 10 times already, but sharing these stories makes space. It just makes more space. It makes more space for everyone to grow. We have some comments, I don't think questions, but thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I'm really enjoying this. So much vulnerability and beauty in there from Trent. Lisa says, I want to thank you all for putting out your amazing work. Nothing comes close to feeling seen and understood. Mike said, that's powerful, Jody. Thank you for this realization. Here's a question, Danielle. This is a question for everyone. Are there future projects that you have to expand your message? That's a good one.
Yes.
What's in the future, people? Your
More
futures.
more books and more movies.
Excellent. Good.
I have in my first book, which is called The Bold World, it is in the hands of 3 great women, Natasha Lyonne, Regina King, and Maya Rudolph. And so we are, and we have a writer now for TV. So it could be a really interesting television series that we binge on.
No, please.
Yay.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, keep us posted.
Right, please.
Yeah, everyone put your social media stuff in the chat, people, because it would be great for people to follow you. I'm now following you all, of course. And I hope to someday welcome you into the Bureau physically when we reopen, and we will reopen someday. This is gonna end. Seems like forever, but it's gonna end.
Yeah, I'm actually, we've been doing our company in Sweden for 3 years now, but I feel like our message needs to be everywhere. And I also like, why should I fight for LGBTQ rights but not women's rights or trans, and so I feel because everybody is valuable in their own way, and I feel that our company can help minority groups bring their voices to be heard. So we're actually in a stadium now, stage where we're expanding to America. So I'm the next couple of months we're gonna move to the US, and that's very exciting. And I hope that I will finish my third. I haven't only written young adult books about LGBTQ. I've also written let me say this correctly, it's a post-apocalyptic urban fantasy, which is featuring LGBTQ, of course, but it's about a Black girl that is the main lead, and it's basically the Hunger Games, but way cooler. And so that's in English, and that's actually available now. So that's going to be translated into English, and then I have to write the third book in Swedish. So I have my hand tied. Yeah. What about you, Raw? Did you say what you were gonna do, Raw? Future.
So I want to turn Charlie into a series. I just feel like it's definitely created with that in mind. And then my illustrator, like Tanya, like you guys all go follow Liza. Please follow Liza.art. She's so cool. She's like, hey, let's do like an animated short with this. And I was like, okay. And so right, so we're working on doing something animated with that as well. And yeah, just trying to push that entire narrative.
What's her Instagram? Liza, Liza or Li?
I'm gonna put it in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
The illustration aspect is so important. I mean, the stories, the language, the way we tell our stories obviously is critical. And then the visual of the diversity and of the love and of the complexity of the families and of the individuals is so important. Teaming up with the illustrator was probably one of the most important parts of the process. And I'm thinking about your book as well. It's just so, it can go left, but if you nail it, it's great.
Yeah.
Same, Jody. I was saying the exact same thing about your illustrations. I was like, there's so much texture, like it just really draws you. And it's completely different types of illustrations, but I agree with you. That is a really important part.
Absolutely. Jody, what is the name of the illustrator of your book?
Charnel Pinckney. And she comes from a line of, her father was a great illustrator as well, Charnel Pinckney. And it was a layered process. It didn't, just like writing, it's not one shot.
Yeah. It's a process.
We layered in the afros and the color of the skin.
For me, it was the opposite. My illustrator, Klaudia Drabikowska, she's from Poland. It was Marcus who sort of got us two together, and we did a Skype call, and I was trying to explain Linus and Bella, who were the first ones. And she just made a drawing, sent it next day. And it was like she had read my mind. It's like exactly the way I pictured Linus and Bella. And so it was so easy. She just told me, write like almost like a screenplay, like a script, and the scenes and everything. And I did that, gave it to her, and she just took her magic wand, and it was fantastic. It was, she knew exactly what I saw in my head. So
that's great. Yeah. I mean, the visuals are important for adults as well as kids, of course, but having actual images, maybe this is a good place to turn to Raw and say, so Grace Jones is a personal hero of mine. And I think many queer people for generations have looked at Grace and said, yes, I like that. Such an inspiration to just be. Raw, do you want to say anything about that? I mean, Grace Jones comes into the story. One of Charlie's friends introduces them.
Yeah, Grace Jones is like just like a superhero for just any and everybody, but especially marginalized, masculine identified women. And just when I first saw Grace, it was life changing because I just never saw anybody look like that. And I grew up in the Midwest, you know, in a very strict household, and I was really sheltered from a lot of pop culture, most of anything. So finding my identity was truly a journey, and then to be limited. So what, from like, you know, TV and media. So when I saw her on Conan the Destroyer, it's like, oh, who is this? Oh my
Grace,
God.
she can make a bad movie excellent.
That's a fact, because I had a funny cast. Will Chamberlain was in that movie. But it was just like eye-opening for me. I became a huge fan, and just the strength and the contrast of what I told power is. And I saw power in her, and I said, yeah, we're gonna throw, this is like a little like monkey wrench, but we're gonna throw this in here because why not? I love her. And it's so cool because that part connects to different people, you know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I love Grace too. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then I felt like Liza, again, I'm gonna just keep, I hope you're like, your ears are burning, your face is red, but like she just it's so beautifully. And there was one picture that we ended up not using it for the book, but I said, no, we got to include this still. So I put it at the end of the book, and it's just like a beautiful portrait that she painted of her. And just to see other people be inspired and to put that creativity, you know, and see the outcome of that, it was just a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know for me, growing up in the 80s in Connecticut, musicians in general, just showing that they could be something that was so beyond so beyond the limitations of the world I existed in. I didn't, you know, I didn't have words for it, but they just gave me so much hope. And then later in life, I would look back and go, of course you loved them. They gave you courage to exist, you know. They showed that you could do this, and that other people responded too. Like, it's not like I'm the only Grace Jones fans. You see that, oh, there's an audience out there, so I'm not alone. You know, that's, I think, so important.
I know Andy's about to chime in because Andy's a great Jones fan.
Well, she's still going, you know. She had
Church of Grace
years ago, and she's still turning it out, and it's original material that she's been doing. I mean, her album came out about, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, Raw.
Yeah.
You reminded me, but you know, you can look up live videos of her with the entire London Symphony Orchestra performing cuts from her most recent album, and she's amazing, and she's 70.
Yeah, there's a great documentary out, which I can't remember the name of.
Bloodlight and Bammy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just watched that, and it's so great. And part of what I love about it is she is, you know, of course, Grace is a fierce diva, but in Jamaica with her family, it's just like, whatever, I'm just one of you. I'm just with my family.
Yeah, yeah. I heard she makes good fried chicken.
Oh, who wouldn't want a week with Grace? I'm so glad I had the experience of seeing her in concert. She's amazing. But enough about Grace. Does anyone else have any questions? We're a little over 12, which is totally fine, but I just wanted to give people a chance if you had anything else you wanted to ask any of our guests, any of our authors. And now is your moment. Or if you want to just say, I love you, that's cool too. We need more love.
I add a comment.
Please.
That it is so wonderful when people take our books and introduce them to the schools that we are attached to. It just takes one person to bring it to the library or this, you know, the head of the school, and say, this is a book that we read in our family. This is a book that my kids love or my cousins love. We'd love to share it with our school. Just passing it on to a school or an institution means so much to us, because a lot of times you don't have LGBT stories in print in our esteemed places. We don't have Black stories. We don't have non-conformity stories in our libraries. And so if anyone out there has an organization or a school that they can pass our books on to, that would be 100. We would really appreciate that.
Yeah. Shout out to all the librarians in the world.
Right?
Librarians work magic.
Well, that's cool that you said that, Jody. I definitely work at a school, and I just DM'd you. And I'm really cool with my librarian, and she just came out to me as hold on, it was really funny. She's like I don't put her business out there, but she came out to me as a different type of identity, and it was really cool and affirming for her. And then we kind of have that, like, that relationship. So I would definitely love to pass on all of you guys' books to the schools that I work for.
Like,
get them out there.
Yeah, we got to.
Into people's hands. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us across the continents. It was great. Such a great conversation. Lovely to be with you people. And I'm so glad I got to meet you. And I look forward to collaborating in the future. Now that we all know of each other's work, let's keep it going.
awesome.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Lovely meeting you, Jody and Ra.
Yeah, as well.
Thank you, everyone.
All of you, thank you, Greg. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much, everybody.
Thank you, Andy.
Mike, all of you guys. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Have a lovely day.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Andy, thanks for setting it up.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.